What are a few of the most brazen robberies that went wrong? Let's find out. Starting with number 5, Clerks 3, The Beatdown. Tyrone Frazier, a man from California, was arrested after attempting to rob a 7-Eleven. And this wasn't his first time robbing that 7-Eleven. He had targeted the exact same store twice before. But during his latest attempt, captured in a viral video, Frazier was seen filling a large trash can with packs of smoke. But his plans were foiled when 2 store clerks decided they had had enough. The clerks tackled Frazier to the ground. One held him down while the other smacked him with what looked like a wooden broom handle or something. Frazier, who initially threatened to bust some caps at the employees, finally gave up after a few hits. He fled the store before police arrived, but was later found nearby, whining about his leg or something. It seems like, for whatever reason, the police weren't aware of the robbery yet. They must have just happened on him, so they let him go. But despite initially escaping, Frazier's adventures were far from over. Police caught up to him again later that night while responding to a vandalism call. Earlier, when they found him complaining about his leg pain, he wouldn't say how he got hurt. Tyrone was real slick like that. A real smooth operator. But officers weren't aware of the 7-Eleven incident yet, so they just let him go. But once the viral video had surfaced and police connected him to the robbery, they arrested him on the spot. Frazier's crime spree began when he threatened to rat-a-tat-tat some store employees and stole several packs of cigarettes. The next day, he returned and, after more gangsta-style threats, grabbed some food before fleeing again. His third attempt, and his most brazen, had him filling a trash can with cigarettes before the clerks fought back. His cigarette habit must have really taken hold of him, you know? The thumping, captured on video, showed Frazier being held down and, well, he wasn't exactly getting into a tickle fight with the stick. The video quickly went viral, leading to Frazier's identification and arrest. Initially, the clerks were under investigation, but the local district attorney later dropped the inquiry. Police also discovered that Frazier was involved in another unreported robbery in the area, further cementing his criminal activities. The aftermath of Frazier's arrest brought mixed reactions. Some praised the clerks for their courage in defending their store, while others felt the beating was excessive. One customer, Louis Benton, who recorded the incident, felt the situation got out of hand, but acknowledged the clerks' bravery. He's better than us, we suppose, because we're like, meh, maybe don't rob places if you don't want to get smacked. Frazier ultimately received a 6-year prison sentence. Initially, he was charged with multiple offenses, including second-degree robbery, attempted second-degree robbery, criminal threats, and vandalism. While he initially faced a 3-year sentence for the robbery charges, it was doubled to 6 years because of a previous strike on his record. Why keep robbing the same place that many times? Maybe he had a punch card or something. 3 robberies and you get a free broomstick massage. Number 4, the art of robbing small museums. Tommy Trotta and his crew, a group of Pennsylvania street toughs, embarked on a series of daring museum heists over nearly 2 decades. Starting in 1999, they targeted small, underprotected museums and sports halls of fame, stealing valuable memorabilia and art. The first theft was at Keystone College, where they swiped the jersey worn by a legendary pitcher, Christy Mathewson, who's regarded as one of the first 5 inaugural members inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1936, along with Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner, and Walter Johnson. This was followed by a string of burglaries, including the Everhart Museum in Scranton, home of Dunder Mifflin, where they took on Andy Warhol's silk screen and a Jackson Pollock painting. Their spree continued at various locations, including the Space Farms Zoo and Museum, the Lackawanna Historical Society, Ringwood Manor, and the Sterling Hill Mining Museum. They even hit the U.S. Golf Association Museum, making off with historical trophies. The crew avoided sophisticated security systems and favored small, lesser-known museums. Their loot included a 1903 Belmont Stakes trophy, Tony Zale's boxing championship belts, and Yogi Berra's championship rings. Despite the value and historical significance of these items, the crew often melted them down for raw materials, which is a really strange decision since it seems like that would devalue the items. Lindsay Berra, granddaughter of baseball legend Yogi Berra, even said that they could have stolen more valuable items from regular jewelry stores instead. And she's Yogi Berra's granddaughter, so she's obviously an authority on the value of stuff. Tommy Trotta was the ringleader, often often scouting locations under the guise of a tourist. He meticulously planned each heist, sometimes using disguises. Once he posed as a firefighter during the Roger Maris Museum theft and as a Hasidic Jew at the Harvard Mineralogical and Geological Museum. The crew used simple but effective tools, such as axes and collapsible ladders, and often avoided sophisticated methods. Trotta and his accomplices, including Nicholas Dombeck, met in Dombeck's garage to plan their heists. Dombeck, who built custom tools for the burglaries, had ambitions beyond theft, even hoping to cure cancer by experimenting with the chemical properties of water. Despite their elaborate plans, the crew's actions were often crude. They once used a snowplow to rip an ATM from a store. The gang's careless handling of stolen items shocked many. They melted Yogi Berra's rings, worth over $1 million, for just $12,000 in gold. The loss of these items was deeply felt by the affected museums and the Berra family. In March of 2019, Trotta's crime spree began to unravel. He was pulled over for erratic driving, leading to his arrest. Police found burglary tools in his car and matched his DNA to samples from several crime scenes. Faced with overwhelming evidence and a big block of cheese, Trotta made a deal with prosecutors, ratting on his accomplices and past heists in exchange for a reduced sentence. Trotta wore a wire during meetings with Dombeck, capturing incriminating conversations. This led to the arrest and indictment of 8 other crew members. 4 pleaded guilty, while the remaining 4 are set to face trial. Despite Trotta's cooperation, much of the stolen memorabilia remains unrecovered. The Warhol and Paula paintings, along with many other items, are still missing. In interviews, Trotta expressed regret for his actions, particularly the destruction of Yogi Berra's memorabilia. He explained that the decision to melt down the stolen memorabilia was driven by the difficulty of selling such recognizable items without drawing attention. He and his crew realized that trying to sell high-profile sports memorabilia, like Yogi Berra's World Series rings, would be too risky because the items were too famous and easily traceable. To avoid getting caught, they opted to melt down the valuable pieces into raw materials, gold and gemstones, which could be sold discreetly for cash. Despite the significant loss in value, with items worth over $1 million being reduced to just $12,000 in gold, Trotta admitted this was a desperate move driven by a need for quick money. Trotta expressed deep regret for destroying items of immense historical and sentimental value, particularly the memorabilia of Yogi Berra. Trotta's ultimate sentence included 51 months in prison after he cooperated with authorities. We're guessing he's probably safer in prison once word gets out that he talked. Number 3. Skeletons in the trunk. A thief was caught on camera stealing a 14-foot-tall skeleton from a front lawn in Austin, Texas, right in broad daylight. Footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera shows the thief driving up to the home in a white SUV around 4:45 p.m. Some red-haired woman steps out of her vehicle, opens the trunk, and starts disassembling the giant Halloween decoration. She struggles to fit the skeleton into her trunk, eventually deciding to break it down further before driving away. This weird theft has shocked the community, especially as it occurred in a usually quiet neighborhood. Grazia Ruskin, the president of the local homeowners association, expressed the neighborhood's surprise. There hadn't been any significant thefts since a few car break-ins from a few years back. In response to those incidents, the community upgraded their lighting and encouraged the use of security cameras. The victim had her neighbors rallying around her as they offered a $50 reward for any information leading to the skeleton's return. Okay, that seems a bit low to us, but at least the gesture was there. But come on, who really wants to steal a giant skeleton? Number 2. Lulu Let Go. Jennifer Ferguson and Rachel Rogers, who were employees at a Lululemon store in Atlanta, were fired for trying to stop a group of thieves from stealing yoga gear. The store has been repeatedly targeted by the same group of apparently broke yoga enthusiasts. During a robbery, mass thieves grabbed merchandise and rushed out to their getaway car. Frustrated by the ongoing thefts, Jennifer and Rachel called the police over it, leading to their termination. Lululemon's policy prohibits employees from interfering with robberies for obvious safety reasons. The company correctly stresses that no merchandise is worth risking an employee's safety and instructs staff to report incidents internally instead of involving the police immediately, which is a little weird, but whatever. Despite this, Jennifer and Rachel felt compelled to act after witnessing multiple thefts. The video of the robbery shows the mass thieves taking a bunch of overpriced leggings while Jennifer and Rachel attempted to verbally stop them. Their actions, however, led to their termination for violating the company's strict non-interference policy. policy. Lululemon maintains that employee safety is their top priority, and that policies are in place to ensure a safe environment for both staff and customers. Jennifer's husband, Jason Ferguson, took to social media to criticize the company's handling of the situation. He talked about how the police were able to arrest the suspects the next day, thanks to his wife's actions. Jason expressed his frustration over the lack of support for employees who try to protect the store and called for changes to Lululemon's policies to better safeguard its workers. Lululemon responded by reaffirming their commitment to safety and their zero-tolerance policy on engaging with thieves. They emphasized their ongoing efforts to collaborate with local law enforcement to address the increasing crime rates affecting retailers across the country. The company continues to face criticism for not taking more proactive measures to prevent repeated thefts, leaving employees such as Jennifer and Rachel in potentially dangerous situations. And this is a tough one, because on one hand, Lululemon's policy makes sense, just for liability reasons alone. It's not safe to confront a possibly armed thief over merchandise that isn't even yours. The reality, for better or for worse, is that companies don't care about you, your family, or anyone's moral sensibilities. All they care about is the bottom line. So if an employee got hurt protecting merchandise, it would ultimately cost the store more than if they just took the loss. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay right here to find out just how efficient they are at ripping off ATMs all over. Number 1. Purses for the wives. Alberto Cruz from Miami-Dade County was arrested for a bold burglary at a Burlington store in Hialeah, Florida. The incident occurred during Black Friday, where he was caught on CCTV stuffing $5,000 worth of handbags and purses into garbage bags. In the footage, Cruz was seen filling his bags while ignoring multiple security cameras. Wearing a black t-shirt with visible tattoos and a baseball cap, he casually walked out of the store unchallenged by staff or shoppers. The trash bags eventually began to break under the weight of the purses as he headed towards the exit. Despite the clear footage, it took 4 days for the store to report the incident. The video of the raid ended up going viral on social media, with a bunch of people both mocking and criticizing Cruz's audacity. Some humorously suggested he must have many wives to need so many handbags, while others expressed sympathy for the business affected by the theft. Cruz was eventually arrested and accused of stealing approximately $5,000 in merchandise from the Burlington store. He was ultimately charged with third-degree grand theft. It's weird that no one tried to stop this guy at all. Well, we wouldn't either, but still. Where was the loss prevention guy? You know, that dude that's always in the front of a Burlington or a Ross, and they're always standing there like they have authority in their loss prevention vest? Where was that guy? Maybe it was his nap time. Romanian gang leader Florian Tudor and his trusted associate Sorinel Constantine Marcu feared their organization would be dismantled after journalist Brian Krebs wrote a 3-part investigative series detailing their criminal operations on his blog. According to the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, the OCCRP, Tudor's organization controlled at least 10% of a $2 billion annual global market for skimmed cards. After running the scam reliably for years, Krebs' article threatened to cost Tudor millions. Florian Tudor, like most gang leaders, is a man who's unafraid of violence, didn't take kindly to being exposed. Tudor wanted revenge, and Marcu was the man who could make it happen. Shortly after the publication, an ominous message from an address tied to a Romanian hacker appeared in Krebs' inbox. It said, quote, "Don't worry, we are coming for you. You and your wife, all is matter of time, amigo." The Riviera Maya gang, led by Florian Tudor, originated in Craiova, Romania, thousands of miles from the tourist hotspot of the Riviera Maya in Mexico. Around 1,000 members were a part of the sophisticated operation. They captured bank card data by installing skimmers on ATMs and hacking into well-known manufacturers' machines to install their custom-designed software. Tudor was a businessman and would spend his profits on luxury apartments in his Romanian hometown, using the money from the gang's profits. Gang members referred to him as El Tiburon, or the Shark. The gang's leader had a murky past. and there are conflicting reports about his life before the Riviera Maya gang. Tudor was born in Craiova, Romania, and became involved in crime at a young age, although he had a clean criminal record. The details of any of his earlier crimes are unknown. When Tudor was in Italy, authorities took him into custody and ultimately deported him, although, again, the details of those charges were unclear. While details about Tudor may be cloudy, one thing is clear. Tudor knew how to run advanced and carefully planned scams. The gang made money from ATM skimming, which involves stealing credit card information by putting a skimming device on an ATM. The device reads inserted credit and debit cards as magnetic stripes, which enables criminals to put the card information on cloned credit and debit cards. Once they've created the cloned cards, they could make purchases and withdraw money while the original card owner was blissfully unaware. What's the easiest way for consumers to discover that their information has been stolen? To make big purchases or withdrawals immediately, thus causing the bank to call the victim and inquire about the charges. Tudor knew that to get away with a heist of this size, he'd have to move slowly and smartly. Not only did the Riviera Maya gang wait months before they withdrew any money from the compromised cards, they also stole small amounts of money. They withdrew $200 from each card, making it far less noticeable to their victims. The operation had many ways to hide the root location of their crimes. When they finally used the stolen card information, they would have members in different countries go to ATMs far from the Riviera Maya region of Mexico and nowhere near where the victims lived. The gang employed skimmers and pullers who operated in places like India, Barbados, Grenada, Paraguay, Indonesia, Brazil, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, making it even harder for victims to pinpoint the location of the theft. To seem more legitimate, Tudor and his stepbrother, Adrian Anaescu, set up Top Life Servicios, a Cancun-based company where they could hide their criminal activities. They quickly realized they would run more effectively if they operated their own ATMs. The group purchased machines from well-known manufacturers such as Hyosung and Triton, hacked their processors, and installed custom-designed software to steal people's information without any extra hardware. Now, all the gang needed was placement and credibility. According to the OCCRP, Maltiva, a well-respected Mexican bank, began its business relationship with Top Life Servicios in 2014, an agreement that benefited both parties. Maltiva wanted to branch out into the Riviera Maya area of the Yucatan Peninsula's Caribbean coast. Top Life Servicios wanted to appear as legitimate as possible, and sponsorship from a bank with name recognition printed on the side of their ATMs was exactly what was needed. Despite some red flags, Maltiva continued working with the company. Since local governments weren't enforcing any of the regulations, there was no reason to worry about any silly things like licenses or paperwork. The agreement with Maltiva covered the entire Riviera Maya area, where millions of tourists flock annually to Playa del Carmen, Tulum, and Cancun. Top Life installed their ATMs in hotels, restaurants, boardwalks, and beaches throughout the region and installed the machines without permission from any local governments. By 2017, Top Life operated over 100 Maltiva-branded ATMs, which copied roughly 1,000 cards every month. While the gang only withdrew small amounts of $200 from each card, their monthly income was $20 million. With so much money coming in, the gang had to account for it without raising suspicion. The OCCRP reported that from early 2014 until spring 2019, the criminal network was making $240 million annually and an estimated overall total of around $1.2 billion. In fact, the Riviera Maya gang controlled at least 10% of the $2 billion annual global market for skimmed cards. They concealed their profits through money laundering, using front companies, and purchasing luxury real estate. The shell companies had little or no actual business operations and were a vehicle for the gang to move money across the world. A network of cash mules helped physically transport large sums of money across borders. They traveled in small groups and used different modes of transportation to avoid detection at border crossings while carrying up to $200,000 in cash. Once the money reached its destination, members would deposit it into multiple bank accounts or use it to purchase high-value assets. Gang members also sent associates in countries like the United States cash via Western Union. The recipients would buy luxury goods like high-end cars and Rolex watches that they would resell for clean money. Tudor's Romanian wife, Rebecca Tudor, was the sole shareholder of a construction company called Redizat, which they used to launder the proceeds from the scheme. Her job was to receive the large sums of cash deposits that that mules were carrying and put them into the company, where she would use the money to pay for construction projects, equipment, and materials. Rebecca was using the construction company for a range of projects, such as transforming an ex-government building in Craiova into a luxury apartment complex. Tudor purchased the building with a shell company and transferred ownership to Rebecca. Rebecca used the cash she received from Tudor's associates to pay for the $2.2 million renovation work to the property. She paid workers and suppliers in cash, avoiding a paper trail. They sold the high-end apartments for $110,000 each when the work was over. The gang transferred the proceeds to offshore companies that Tudor controlled. In their efforts to be untraceable, the criminal group buried some of the stolen money, placing it in plastic bags and burying it in places like empty lots, backyards, and even cemeteries. Dealing with money in the States, however, was a different story. Banks often freeze accounts when a card is used overseas without any notification. To stop this from slowing the gang down, they needed to withdraw the money from ATMs located in the United States. Tudor enlisted the help of Filip Serdaru, a Romanian who immigrated to Canada in 1999 after being persecuted in his home country. He was an expert in helping fellow Romanians across the U.S. border, having smuggled at least 295 people from Mexico into the U.S. in 2012 and 2013 alone. Serdaru would fly people into Cancun, the location of the Riviera Maya gang's headquarters, with at least one corrupt immigration agent. They were put on buses to travel to border cities like Tijuana, Mexicali, Ciudad Miguel Alman, where they would stay in hotel rooms rented by the gang. Mexican guides would bring Serdaru's people across the border on foot. Serdaru and his associates made roughly $2,200 for each person they brought across the border. A group of Eastern European men offered an ATM technician $6,000 to install Bluetooth skimming devices in the ATMs. The technician contacted Brian Krebs, a former Washington Post journalist specializing in internet security crimes. The gang planted Bluetooth skimming devices in many of their ATMs, making it even harder to detect them. When Krebs traveled to Mexico, he discovered that many ATMs had a Bluetooth link called Free to Move. The crime syndicate bribed and coerced ATM technicians to install the Bluetooth skimmers and paid technicians to compromise machines at competing ATM providers. The scheme essentially gained them control over Instacash, another Mexican-based ATM company. Krebs wrote a 3-part story on his blog, Krebs on Security, about ATM skimming and mentioned that an Eastern European gang was running the scam. The Instacash tech shared pictures of Instacash's chief deputies and screenshots of card data allegedly gained by the company's various skimming operations. The source was extremely scared for their safety, but stated that Tudor's gang was paying off Mexican authorities. Mexican police never followed up on Krebs' reporting, but the gang temporarily shut down their operations. A furious Tudor ordered members to temporarily extract chips from 10 of the ATMs they ran and 25 to 30 ATMs owned by other companies or banks. Tudor and his associates couldn't hide forever, and it was from within the gang's highest rankings that things began to implode. Constantine Sorinel Marcu was one of Tudor's most trusted men and his former bodyguard, but their friendship was clouded by resentment. Tudor was jealous of Marcu's relationships with women, and Marcu felt he wasn't getting a high enough cut from the business. As tensions were rising, Marcu began sabotaging Instacash's operations by applying superglue to Instacash ATM's pin pads and card acceptance slots. At the same time, Tudor was paranoid that Marcu would go to the police and reveal the gang's entire operation. In June 2018, Marcu was driving in Cancun. One moment he was following a member of Tudor's crew, and the next he had lost his life because of a bullet. Details of Marcu's demise are unclear, though he was likely dispatched somewhere else and moved to his car. Marcu's car was parked in front of a new apartment complex built and paid for by Tudor. The news media narrative of what happened avoided placing any blame on Tudor or his gang. However, Marcu's brother, Aurelio Marcu, spoke out against the Mexican authorities. He claimed that Tudor was giving the police large sums of hush money. Mexican authorities helped spin the news media narrative over the crime to avoid generating too much attention. By that point, Tudor was working so closely with police in the area that he was practically in charge. But Tudor's connections couldn't save him when law enforcement finally became suspicious of his operation. Romanian authorities issued a court order for Tudor's arrest on charges of attempted murder and leading a criminal network involved in human trafficking. Tudor was unwilling to go down without a fight, and a physical confrontation broke out when Mexican authorities arrested him. Video footage of Tudor wrestling officials and screaming while they carried him out by his arms and his legs went viral. Police arrested some of Tudor's associates who allegedly tried to assault at least one police officer during the exchange. Maltiva claimed to have been entirely unaware of of any scam carried out on their branded machines, despite Krebs on Security exposing the gang in September of 2015. Krebs detailed how the ATM industry and law enforcement were being bribed and coerced by Tudor's associates while Maltiva did nothing. The bank stated they hadn't dealt with unusual complaints and denied any knowledge of Intacash. Maltiva also said that they audited their machines, but that statement was likely untrue. Despite allegations of fraud and corruption involving Maltiva's branded machines, they continued working with Top Life for a considerable time. They even signed a new agreement with Maltiva in 2019 to provide ATMs for the bank's customers. Maltiva didn't end its relationship with Top Life until Tudor's arrest and extradition to Romania. They made a statement emphasizing that the bank wasn't involved in any illegal activity and that Maltiva was also a victim of the ATM fraud. The operation went much further than just the bank's involvement. Jorge de la Peña Ruiz de Chavez, the leader of Mexico's Green Party, was removed from office after being accused of receiving money from the Romanian ATM skimming gang. The Mexican Ministry of Finance seized 79 bank accounts as part of their ongoing investigation into the criminal network, and one of those accounts belonged to de la Peña. He cooperated with authorities but denied any involvement in the group. De la Peña wasn't the only person to have their bank account frozen by the Mexican Ministry of Finance. Public figures like the former Secretary of Public Security of Cancun, Jose Luis Jonathan Young, his father, Jose Luis Young Cruz, former governors of Quintana Roo, the owner of the Quequi newspaper, Jose Alberto Gomez Alvarez, and the notary, Nain Diaz Medina, also lost access to their accounts during the investigation. In May 2020, the Mexican daily newspaper Reforma reported that Tudor and his associates enjoyed legal probation from a top anti-corruption official in the Mexican Attorney General's office. Florian Tudor is currently in a Mexican prison, fighting his extradition to Romania to face more charges. We've all heard about horror stories from vacationers visiting foreign countries. Tourists always seem like easy marks since they typically have large amounts of disposable cash ripe for the taking. The scary thing about the Maya Riviera gang was that legitimacy with which they operated. Their ATMs had a trusted brand, there was no evidence of tampering, and the sums being removed were relatively small so they would escape notice. The lessons here are to use the chip readers whenever possible, since the skimmers copy the magnetic strip. Some also suggest setting up a separate travel account to limit the damage should your card become compromised. Even while Tudor is in custody, his businesses are as strong as ever, which begs the question, why continue risking jail time? Florian Tudor is reminiscent of Dr. Evil, not understanding that he's making plenty of money through legitimate means. At the end of the day, a shark is always going to be a shark. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comment section what social media platform you'd rather keep, TikTok or Instagram.